All right, this is part two of the letter. There's actually three parts, but this is part two of three of the letter that was received by Ed Brown today on December the 12th, the year 2016. At the top, it says File in the Constitution folder. At the bottom, it says page 33. And the previous pages that I read for Bill of Rights was page 31 and 32. All right, so here we go. America's Organic Law. In Black's Law Dictionary, we find this definition of organic law. Organic law, the fundamental law or constitution of a state or nation, written or unwritten, that law or system of laws or principles which defines and establishes the organization of its government. The first sentence of this definition is very clear and concise, except for the addition of the word constitution in it. Let's look at this sentence restated properly. The fundamental law of a state or nation, written or unwritten. The second sentence of this definition is deliberately misleading. An organic law does not concern itself with the organization of the government, as that is simply a framework built around the real meaning and intent of the organic law of any state or of any nation. Even read in the above manner with the second sentence intact, this definition is deliberately misleading. Organic law, the fundamental law of a state or nation, written or unwritten, that law or system of laws or principles which defines and establishes its government. Quite simply, the organic law of a nation is the meaning and the intent of the people, see the Declaration of Independence, who founded the nation or state and formed its government. You then take that meaning and intent which defines what the purposes of government is, in other words, the reason for the government to exist, and organize the government around it. That is what the Constitution does. It establishes and organizes the United States of America based upon the organic law of the United States of America. The governments of the United States of America existed from the time of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. This is why we date the birth of our nation from July 4th, 1776. The Constitution, adopted many years later, was simply the framework worked out for the size and for the shape of the government named the United States of America. A government formed by the United States in order to defend the nation states and their people from foreign interference. This government, the United States of America, is an agent for the United States of America and does not constitute a nation, and as such cannot have an organic law. A sovereign cannot have a sovereign. And the states which comprise the United States of America are sovereigns, subject to the people, with all of their sovereign powers except those ceded to their agent. The United States of America, in order that they may treat with foreign nations as one for mutual protection, freedom of the people of America cannot exist for any length of time except under this clearly defined separation of powers. And the only reason to attack this separation of powers is in order to destroy those same freedoms. Page 34. The United States of America, with only limited sovereign powers as detailed in the Constitution, is not a nation. It is simply a government formed by the United States of America, holding in trust for the people of the United States of America certain limited territories over which it has exclusive rule, and acting as an agent responsible for treating with foreign powers and acting in the national defense of the United States. Looking at it in this manner, as I do, you begin to realize how ridiculous it is to even begin to imagine that the federal government could enter into any treaty which would override the Constitution and the organic law of America. Organic law of America. For the federal government to attempt to alter or to change in any manner the Constitution, which forms the only basis for its existence, since it has no organic law upon which it may fall back upon, is legally impossible, and prima facie evidence of high treason and sedition on the part of those behind the attempt. It is impossible to have a separation of powers without this clearly understood distinction, and other interpretation of our organic law will eventually lead to the destruction of the United States of America and to the creation of a dictatorship over us all, just as is happening to America today. It is the United States of America, the government formed by and for the United States of America, which has been corrupted and taken over by a foreign power. It is now time for the United States of America to clean their government up. To approach this subject in any other manner is ludicrous, and it is playing their game. Shouldn't it be obvious how completely the Rothschilds hated the organic law of America? The nation-states banded together and raised up in direct opposition to their power and influence. All of this in America, we have been all of this time in America, we have been concerning ourselves with the Constitution of the United States of America, and they, meaning the establishment, wish us to concentrate on that document. Anyone who has studied the Constitution and the history of its formation in America is aware that the Masons were already hard at work in the New World in the 1880s, and that through their efforts several items were inserted into the Constitution which could be used later in order to subvert that fine document. The deliberately vague general welfare clause, as well as the provision making any treaty the law of the land, are two good examples of what I am referring to. No matter how asinine the interpretation of the black-robed stooges of the elite may be concerning these two and other provisions of the Constitution, the use of deceit and outright lies in order to accomplish the destruction of the Constitution was successfully carried out. This was accomplished by convincing a large majority of the people of this nation that the Constitution was our basic organic law. Meaning and intent. Before we go any further into the meat of this discussion, let's be sure that we all understand what constitutes the meaning and intent of a law. Is the meaning and the page 30. Hold on just a second. Oh, page, okay. It's out of order in my, it's stapled out of order, but I'll just go to page 35. To begin with, which came first? Of course, the Declaration of Independence. This, it's cut off. When they copied it, the top line was cut off. So I'm going to skip a few words, and it says verbiage or law. In other words, is the meaning and intent of a law the words contained in the law? The next section is unreadable. Of course not. Words mean nothing until those words are interpreted. The meaning and intent of any law is the ultimate result of that law, which is totally dependent upon the interpretation of the words contained in the law. Once you understand this, it is easy to understand why Black's Law Dictionary has been substituted into our system of judicial abuse in the place of the dictionary used to write that same law. Let's understand something else right here. One of the first real pieces of evidence that anyone, whether he be an attorney or a truck driver, should hold on to without tremendous energy, and which he should proclaim to all who will listen about what is wrong in America, is the very simple fact that one dictionary is used to write our laws, but a different dictionary is used to interpret the same words in that law, in our so-called courts. This is such a simple abuse of the people to understand, yet how many Americans are aware of it? That's right, another of those secrets that are so evil. And make no mistake about how directly this change in the interpretation of words bears upon the meaning and intent of the law. Okay. If Congress passes a law which ends up banning all homeschooling or which ends up confiscating the arms of all law-abiding Americans, then you can rest assured that these end results were and are the actual meaning and intent of those laws. You can also rest well assured that the men and women who write these laws understand and intend exactly the meaning and intent, in other words, the ultimate end result of each law passed, whatever dictionary is used in order to write or to intercept the law. Since most of these men and women are attorneys anyway, you can be well assured that they understand very well which dictionary will be used to interpret that which they write and pass as law. Establishing the meaning and intent of the Declaration of Independence is very easy to do so. Simply read the darn thing. Whatever interpretation is put upon the words. The intent and meaning behind the Declaration of Independence is that all men, being equal, shall be free, and that any government which shall exist does so only at the consent of the governed, and for the sole purpose of protecting those same freemen and their rights. Any other actions by the persons elected or appointed to serve in and control the same government, particularly the subjection of our nation to foreign authority or rule, is sedition and high treason. July the 4th, 1776. To understand exactly what I'm saying, all you have to do is look at this date and examine the events which occurred then and afterwards. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. Page 36. This is the foundation, the beginning of the United States of America, and this document, the Declaration of Independence, states clearly and concisely the meaning and the intent of the original 13 United States of America and of the founding fathers of this nation. This document and no other is the organic law of America. What came after this date, the Constitution, was simply the framework or government built around the organic law of America, the United States of America. Is it going to be difficult to get the black robes to accept this premise? Of course it is. But we must begin somewhere to break through the lies concerning what is going on in America, and this is one of the best places to start. Sit down and read the Declaration of Independence carefully. This will not take you very much time, as this is a short treatise. Note how exactly the Declaration of Independence reflects our exact situation as it exists in America today. If nothing else, the black robes must acknowledge, just as a start, that this document forms the legislative history behind the Constitution of the United States of America, and that is very powerful in itself. Why? Because this is a very short, simple, and well-written document. It is very difficult to misinterpret anything written here. This is the beauty of short, concise law, and this is why attorneys and judges hate short, clearly written law so much, as it leaves very little room for the interpretation of special privileges in order to avoid the law, which is where so much of their money comes from. Within this subject comes additional understanding. You cannot have a document serve as the organic law of a nation which is open to the interpretation and change. The only interpretation and change which can occur is from the framework built around the organic law, and that framework is the Constitution. As you read the Declaration of Independence, ask yourself if there is any method detailed for changing it, as there is in the Constitution. Of course not. Why is this unacceptable to the so-called elite? This must be self-explanatory by now, so we will not waste much time on this subject. But the point has to be made here that this type of easily understood law is unacceptable to those who desire special privileges. And when the voice of the people is still, those with the money and power to sway government, any government to their point of view, will always prevail until the burdens placed upon the people once again become so great that they must speak. Organic Law Part 2. Perhaps the most important part of this subject is understanding the exact relationship in time between the Declaration of Independence, the federal government, and the Constitution. To begin with, which came first? Of course, the Declaration of Independence. This, page 37. This means that the Declaration predates the presidency, the federal legislature, the judiciary. Because of this relationship in time, they cannot touch the Declaration of Independence. To even attempt to do so would be sedition, and an easily provable case of treason. The organic law of a nation is not subject to review and change, because that would mean that a new nation was being formed and established. If the Constitution is the organic law of this land, every time the Constitution is amended and changed, a new nation is being established. And if you will study this subject carefully until you fully understand the meaning and intent behind the 13th and 14th Amendments to the Constitution, you will find that this is exactly what the elite intended to occur, that a new nation completely alien to the organic law of the United States of America and to the meaning and to the intent of the original 13 founding nation states and of our founding fathers was to be established illegally by fraud, deceit, corruption, and force of arms during the Civil War. Make no mistake about this. The meaning and the intent behind this new nation was and is completely different from that which you have always been taught it is, and this is why its actions must always be carefully hidden from the mass of the people of this nation. Why? For the safety of those who operate this clandestine nation. For in their fear, they know exactly what would happen to them if their true intentions ever became widely known. Stop and think as you are reading this. That is always what is most damaging to those who do nothing but tell lies. If you are reading this, you probably have a working knowledge of economic slavery, as it has been forced upon we the people of America. So you have a basic understanding about the meaning and intent behind this other nation, established through the 13th and 14th Amendments to the Constitution. Just a simple fact that none of the details about our so-called monetary system was ever taught to you in public school. Grade high or college, public school is proof positive of the fraudulent nature of this other nation. The Constitution. The Constitution did come into being at the same instant as the three branches of the federal government. At the time of the adoption of the Constitution by the United States, and it is easily seen how the establishment in Washington, D.C. and New York City have played with and reworked the Constitution to their own benefit and power, and to the detriment of we the people of this nation. This type of change is acceptable only if the alternation and change within the framework of the government follows the guidelines laid down in the organic law of the nation. This is why so many of the original 13 states demanded that the Bill of Rights be adopted at the same time as the Constitution was adopted, so that the Constitution would more closely conform to the organic law of America, the Declaration of Independence. It is also very important to understand another huge difference between the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and one of my friends had to point this out to me because I missed it completely. Nowhere in the Constitution is there any mention of a higher power, our Creator, the Lord of us all. Our unalienable rights and the foundations for these rights is mentioned only in the Declaration of Independence. This is why the Bill of Rights was necessary in order to conform that which was obvious in the Declaration of Independence. Understanding this and having just a passing understanding of the nature and of the faith of the great majority of our founding fathers is additional proof concerning the real nature of our organic law. The Constitution is clearly predated by the Declaration of Independence. This is extremely important because the Declaration of Independence states the meaning and the intent of the original 13 United States and that of the founding fathers of this nation. This means very simply that the Constitution and all the alterations to the Constitutions called articles in the Bill of Rights or amendments, as well as all judicial interpretations of the Constitution and of the amendments to the Constitution, must conform to the clear and concise meaning of the Declaration of Independence. Do they? Obviously not. And a study of special privileges as detailed in the so-called 14th Amendment shows this very well. All of the changes in law in America must follow the same pattern, not just the Constitution itself. It is very easy to see how this would curtail the power of the courts in America and of the power and influence of attorneys in general. So you can rest assured that my contention concerning the organic law of America is not going to be received with open arms by the establishment, but I knew and understood this before I started writing, so it will certainly not be a surprise when they reject this out of hand. The so-called 16th Amendment. To give you a sample of exactly what I mean, look at the simple statement from the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal. What does this mean? Exactly that which it says. And the sister statement to this simple concept is that all men must be treated equal. This is why a heavy, graduated income tax is illegal in a republic. You cannot assess to one man a tax not equal to the same tax when applied to another man. They must, by law, be treated equally and taxed equally. One man may not be required to bear more than his fair burden of taxation, nor may any man be accorded relief from a portion of the tax that he would otherwise bear when the same relief is not accorded to every man assessed that same tax. In other words, deductions before a tax is paid are illegal, because deductions are simply a system of special privilege, just as tax-exempt foundations are a special privilege, and illegal in a republic as detailed in our organic law. If you doubt this, just think about it for a moment. Do you really think that the common man is permitted to take anywhere near as many deductions as the super rich are permitted? Among other benefits, this prevents the government from playing with the tax system in order to benefit their patrons, their friends, and themselves, and it prevents them from using the tax system in order to force social change, according to their own vision of the nation, upon we the people of these nations. This kind of adherence to the law will definitely upset all of the establishment. That was the bottom of page 38. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and get this uploaded on behalf of Sovereign Edward Lewis Brown.